Hello and welcome to another video series about multiplayer game development using Unity Engine. So I decided to create a playlist about Unity gaming services. Usually I go with the custom networking solutions, but Unity also has some good packages that we could use. Of course, some of these Unity gaming services are not free, so it would be up to you to decide whether it is useful to use these services or not. So in this video, I'm gonna set up the project, maybe create a basic UI system so we could use it in the next videos. So to do that, I've created a blank project. Also, you need to create an account in the Unity website. So you go to the Unity dashboard, and in the projects tab, you can just go ahead and create a project, name it whatever you want. I'm just gonna name it UGS test, and I'm gonna leave the default for that option. And now let's create. So as you can see, just like that, it's gonna create a project for you. Now we can go to the Unity and link our project in the settings. Here in the services, you can select the organization that you have, and you can create a new cloud project or use an existing cloud project, which we just created a UGS test. So let's just link it to that one. Link Unity project to cloud project. So yes, and that's it. It's been linked. And of course, in the newer versions of the Unity Hub, when you go ahead and create a new project, there is an option to connect it to Unity Cloud. So I think it's just going to automatically create a cloud project for you, so you wouldn't have to go through the process in the Unity dashboard. Now our work is done, and if we go to the package manager, there is a bunch of packages that we could use that rely on Unity services. So the first one is authentication, which I'm gonna cover in the next video. And after that, I'm probably gonna go with the leaderboard. After that, I'm gonna go with friends, then maybe lobby and relay, matchmaking, and basically I'm gonna cover the most important services that Unity has. So I could create a foundation, and I'm gonna use that as a code base for my future projects that I'm going to be creating based on Unity services. And this is not going to be project oriented. There isn't going to be a specific game. So to make my job easier in the future videos, I'm going to create a panel system for my UI, so I could create different types of panels in my canvas and open and close them just with a line of code. So I am going to create a folder, name it scripts, and if I open this, creating another folder, maybe name it tools, and inside this I will create a script and name it panel. So if I open this, so our panels are gonna have a string as ID and a rect transform as container. I'm gonna create the awake function, but I'm gonna make it virtual so we could override it. Also, I'm gonna create a virtual function, name it initialize, and inside awake I'm gonna call initialize. A function to open the panel and another one for closing a panel. So that's all the functions we need. So let's create a boolean to check whether our panel is initialized or not. So we're calling initialize in the awake function. First we check if the initialized is true, then we return if it is. Otherwise we set it to true, and we close the panel. So basically on the awake function, we close all the panels in the scene. Let's also create a boolean to see whether this panel is open or closed. Also, I'd like to get a reference to the canvas that is the parent of this panel. Simply in the open function, we say if it is not initialized, initialize it first. Set the transform as the last sibling. Container game object, set it to true and is open to true. And in the close function, game object to false and is open to false. So we're going to be using this panel script. Let's actually go to the editor. Here, if I create a canvas, so under my canvas, I will be creating different panels. For example, this one going to be auth panel, the other one is going to be leaderboards, and so on. And under every single of these panels, I'm going to create a container and then I'm gonna put my UI elements under this container. And when I attach the panel script here, I'm gonna give it an ID, any ID that I want. So every time I want to open this panel, I will enable this container, and then to close it, I'm gonna disable it. So this way I am going to open and close this panel. And the reason I'm not gonna enable and disable this game object, because the script is attached to this game object, and if we disable this, we're gonna disable the script too. So because of that, we're gonna create a container under it, and we enable and disable this game object. And if we open this, as you can see in the code, we set the transform set as last sibling. That's because this script is attached to this transform. So when we set this as the last sibling, it's gonna bring it here. So it doesn't matter how many other panels are here, it's gonna bring it to the last. So it's gonna cover other panels. I know this panel system is not exactly about Unity services, but it's a tool that we need to manage all those services together. Of course, you could create your own panel system if you have something specific in mind. So I'm gonna create another script, name it panel manager. If I open this, I could create a dictionary of type string panel, call it panels, a boolean for initialized, an array of canvases, and a singleton for our package manager. So every time we call the singleton, it is going to check if the singleton is null, then it is going to try to find it. If it doesn't exist in this scene, it's just gonna create it, and here it is going to initialize it. Let's go ahead and create an initialize function. Also, let's create the onDestroy function and set the singleton to null if this is the singleton. In the initialize function, we check the initialized boolean, we clear the dictionary, we get all the canvases in the scene, and we search under all those canvases to find any type of panel, and then we're just gonna add them to a panels dictionary. So every time we want to get a panel, let's create a function called getSingleton. So we pass the ID of that panel and we search the dictionary for that ID, and if there is a panel with that ID, we're gonna return that. We could create a function to open a certain panel by passing its ID, closing a certain panel to check if a certain panel is open or not, maybe even a function to close all the panels. So you could add as many other functions that you need. So that's it for the panel manager. Now that we have our panel system set up, let's go ahead and create a couple of menus. So let's create a folder under the scripts. I'm gonna put the scripts related to the menu here and scripts related to my game session in this folder. So let's go to the menu and create a script named menu manager. So this menu manager is going to be the start of our project. So we're gonna attach it to a game object in our menu scene, and the first script that is going to execute any code would be this menu manager. Let's also create a singleton for it, and we could put an initialize function there. Maybe later we could add some code in it. Just for now, we leave it like that. And in the onDestroy, we are going to remove the singleton. So here it is. The awake function is going to be our first encounter. So we're gonna write our logic here. When we start Unity services, we're gonna do it here. For now, I'm just gonna say application run in background equals true. So yes, that's for our menu manager. So let's go ahead and actually rename our scene. Here, I'm gonna rename it to menu. And in the build settings, menu is gonna be the first scene that is going to be opened. So here I am going to create an empty game object and attach the menu manager to it. Let's also rename this to menu manager. So the awake function inside this menu manager is going to be the place when we initialize our services and start our interaction with the project. So for any menu we want to create, for example, leaderboards, authentication, and other kind of menus, we're not going to use the panel directly. That's just going to be a base for our panels. For every panel, we're going to create a specific script. For example, every time I encounter a problem or an error in my project, obviously I'm not going to use debug.log. I want to open up a menu with a message and a button to close that message. So let's create a menu, name it error menu, for example. And if I open this error menu, we can go ahead and inherit from panel. Also, let's use TM Pro and Unity Engine UI. So we could have a error text, the text of the button, and also the button itself. We can create a function for when we click on the button, what happens. Because we are inheriting from panel, we have access to the close method. So whenever we click on that button, we could close the panel, and we can override the initialize function and add the listener for our button here. Also, we could create a public function and name it open. Whenever we call this open, first we're going to open the panel. It is going to take an error message and a button text. We're going to set those values. So simply like this, we've created a error menu. So I've already created something simple. Let me delete that one and that one. So this is the error menu I have created. Let's go to the 2D view in our canvas, and let me put this on (9020 1080). So here is my error menu. There is a container under that, which this container has been stretched to fill the parent Rex transform. Under this one, we have a background, which is an image. You can change the color to whatever. We have a panel, which is that image over there. We have a text and a button, simply like that. So if I select my error and if I bring it here, let's choose an ID for it. I'm going to name it error, and this is going to be the container. That's going to be the text message. That is going to be button, and this is going to be the text of our button. So from now on, every time we want to show an error, we can simply use the panel manager to get the singleton for the error menu and open that error easily. Let's actually go to the menu manager here, and let's show some error in our awake function. We can say error menu panel manager dot get singleton. The ID that we chose was error, and we can cast this as error menu. Now we can simply say panel dot open. That's going to be the text for our error, and for the button we're also going to choose a text. So simply with a 2-line of code, anytime in our project we can pop up a message. Also, let's make sure to remove the default values here, because we already have an open function and we don't want to create an interference. So if we play the project, you see that we have a error message, something happened, cool. So that's how we could create our panels. So I'll finish this video here, and in the next video I'm gonna cover the authentication. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.